Hello everyone, this is Scott Jorgens from Endeavour Solutions. Today's webinar is on QuikTags for document management in support of Dynamics GP or Dynamics CRM. For those that are new to Endeavour, we've been around for 25 years now. 3 lines of business: advisory services, implementation and upgrades, and ongoing optimization and support. We focus on Microsoft Dynamics GP, Dynamics CRM, and Office 365. We now have over 400 clients across Canada and parts of the U.S. Key offices are in Toronto, Halifax, London, Ontario, Edmonton, and Montreal. So our focus today is going to be talking about QuikTags, and I have Mary Miller from ImageTag to take us through a fantastic demonstration and high-level overview of how we can take all of our documents, whether they be paper or digital, and put them into QuikTags to manage them and either link them directly into GP or using QwikTag Anywhere, which is a product that is standalone and can create custom connections into Dynamics CRM.
Thanks for that, Scott. And as Scott mentioned, there's a lot of different ways to get documents into QuikTag, and just a couple of seconds on why you might want to do that. Well, businesses come to us for a lot of different reasons, and here are just a few of them. They typically start with the most paper-intensive, the most manual processes, the most burdened areas of the business, and many of you can probably relate to the fact that there's paper coming into accounting and sales order and expense management and HR and lots of other areas of the business. And the one thing that we want you to take away from that is that when you work with Endeavour, regardless of which area of your business it is that's most burdened by this paper and these processes, QuikTag can be a fit for you potentially in any of those areas of the business. What I'm going to demonstrate today is specifically related to accounts payable and the way that an invoice works its way through a system for capture, integration with the ERP, and then automation for workflow routing and approvals. As you can see, we can either capture the data and manually index it, or we can read it, as is indicated here, through OCR. And then the workflow rules are entirely up to your business structure, your business, what we call a matrix. So we'll essentially take all of your rules and business requirements of which of these business lines have documents that go to this department manager or the CFO for approval, versus a different department manager and some other executive for final approval if that's required. Now, specifically within Dynamics GP, we're enabled on 79 different screens, and we're going to take a look at some of those in just a minute here in the demo, but the value of that is that it minimizes the keystrokes on the data entry side. It minimizes the risk for manual, error and potentially duplicate entry of data and documents. And it also streamlines the process because it gets rid of the paper and gets rid of the running around the office chasing down approvals and waiting for things to come back, and what if the person's on vacation, and you guys know how it goes. So that's what brings most organizations to QuikTag, and we're going to take a look at the accounts payable process here in just a second. Now, why would you work with QuikTag or ImageTag as part of your relationship with Endeavour? Well, we've been doing this for about 20 years, and the good news is that we were the first to integrate with the Microsoft Dynamics ERP systems and their suite of products within GP, AX, NAV, and SL. Again, our discussion today is going to be exclusively focused on GP, but the fact is that we have a legacy of being embedded as the first document management system within the Dynamics platform. And then we added to that process workflow like accounts payable that we're going to take a look at today, essentially based on the needs and the requirements of our customers as they began to grow and realize that this whole getting rid of the paper problem, is great, but then what? As soon as we got rid of it, now we've got these bottlenecks that we have to deal with, and we've got compliance requirements, and we've got audits, and all of those sorts of things that workflow would make that process a lot more streamlined. So then that was the next step that we took. And the great thing of having the 120,000 business users around the globe that we have is that 98% of them come back year after year, because we take our commitment to maintaining the product and maintaining our customer support and our relationship, and certainly our partnership with Endeavour to make sure that you're getting everything that you need out of QuikTag and that product as well as our relationship. So a live demo of QuikTag and the way that it integrates specifically within GP, and we're going to look at the accounts payable automation process. Now, you'll notice on my screen that what we're looking at is something that's probably very familiar to all of you, the payables transaction entry screen within GP. And what I'm going to do is take a look at how things end up, and then we're going to take a step back and look at how the documents got there. So if you're not familiar with QuikTag, what you're looking at here is the additional menu, and we attach to the additional menu, as I mentioned, in 79 screens within GP. And so any place you see that, if you're not working with another product that's integrated, you probably don't have an additional tab on your menu bar there. This is what you'll see as you become familiar with QuikTag. This is what you'll see. Now, in this particular transaction, I've already coded it. It's already been approved, and it's got the supporting documentation. And if I just click this little button of View Documents, I can see the invoice that was originally associated with it. And then I've got an additional document that I just dragged and dropped over into this particular transaction so that my accounts payable manager could easily extract any additional information that they needed on that given transaction. Now, how did it get there? So the easy part was seeing it come alive. The fun part's going to be, what did we do to get that information into the system? So within QuikTag, what we're looking at here is our web-based interface. Now, on the left-hand side, you see what we call drawers. So as I mentioned, people come to us because they want to get rid of the paper problem. Well, where do they keep things today? They keep them in drawers and filing cabinets. So when you migrate all of that into QuikTag, we essentially create a digital drawer for every one of those screens that we attach to across 9 different modules, specifically within GP. Now, because we're focusing on the accounts payable process, most of these will look very familiar to you as being accounting related. Invoices in particular, rejected invoices, different ways that we can get the data into the system. So I've got a folder here for uploaded and emailed invoices. So all of these drawers have files in them. Now, what happens as an accounts payable person is that they would come in and they would start their day in what we call a work queue. So what QuikTag does is it knows based on what drawer a document is in and who it's been assigned to within the business structure, who's supposed to take the next step with that particular document. Now, in this case, we're looking at a whole bunch of invoices. It looks like I need to catch up a little bit here. So we're going to take a look at the first invoices here. We've got several that have been sent in today. You can see the date received here. I'm just clicking through to share a few examples with you, and so we're going to go ahead and code this one. So as documents come into QuikTag, they're sitting in the person's queue. As you can see, I'm logged in as Mary, so I'm the accounts payable clerk in this role, and I need to code and tag this document, or if I were using OCR, I could have had this information automatically extracted. But in this case, we're going to go ahead and enter some information. Now, the beauty of the integration with GP and QuikTag starts at the company level and the vendor ID. So that company ID could be, any of the GP companies for which you are managing their accounting system. In this case, we're using test data, but we're pulling here for this vendor ID all of the vendors that you have in GP. So you don't need to leave the system. You don't need to go back and forth to look anything additional up. And I can see that I'm going to filter down here to Advanced Office Systems. For purposes of this demonstration, I go ahead and select that ID from within QuikTag while pulling that vendor list from GP. Now, as you can see, when I selected that vendor ID from the list, it populated the vendor name. And it's also going to populate, you'll see a couple of things here come up. I'm going to just grab this invoice number. Now, we do have a duplicate check, some quality control in place, so we don't allow anything to be duplicated. I'm going to just put the company name here and today's date so that we can easily identify the unique invoice that we're working with today. I'm going to grab this dollar amount, copy and paste it over here, again minimizing the manual entry. So even if we don't do the full OCR extraction, as you can see, I can still highlight and select this information. I can still copy and paste it, again minimizing the data entry as well as the risk for error. Now, the other thing we pulled off of that vendor card from GP is the default GL distribution if you have one set up. So again, we're taking a few of the keystrokes away from the accounts payable manager, And we're going to give it the department manager, whoever needs to approve this, the opportunity to review that and change it if necessary. So they could add an additional line or change those amounts. So we're just going to go ahead and submit this and say please pay. And once we click submit, you can see that document was indexed with a barcode. Now, the whole name KwikTag comes from the idea that we are individually tagging each one of these documents so that it can be routed and managed and have a unique identifier. Now, if this was a paper document, we would use what we have as physical manual tags that affix to your documents that come in via paper. Maybe they still come into a central mail room, or maybe they get mailed to the department manager, maybe they get mailed directly into accounting. The first person that receives that can just put the little sticky label with the tag on it and route it around till it gets scanned into the system. You know, it can just sit on your desk until lunch or the end of the day or the end of the week if you so choose. And you can scan them all in a batch because that tag also serves as a document separator. So it knows then how many pages are going to be associated with each file, and they would appear just like these ones here that show uploaded or invoices, and you would just see that it was a scanned document or it was a tag document, and it got into the system through some other means. Now I'm going to click over to my Approval Central because I can see here that that information, that document just disappeared out of my work queue in my Mary view, and now as you can see I'm logged in as Mary Department Manager. And so this is now looking for an approval. So we can easily see that I can look at the invoice here, and I came into this section called Invoices. Now, there's a lot of different things I could be approving. Some of our clients, on a quick side note, some of our clients use the Approval Central specifically related to accounts payable for not only invoices, but also their check batches or any other sort of payment approval. Maybe an invoice is over a certain dollar threshold or something like that. So if I'm the accounts payable manager and I want to look at this check batch or maybe review things before they get paid, I can see all of the invoices that are associated with that payment. I can click on them and view the individual invoice specifically in line here, so that if I want to drill down, I can see where the distribution was. I can see the file itself. I can just open that here and it'll replace the file that I'm looking at now. You can see how you can drill down and have everything in a single view. Now, there's another way to think about this that I'll show you in just a second here, and that's from a case view. And this is just a quick aside, but not really, because it's within the same type of interface. If you are looking for bringing everything together from an HR or an expense management or some other, process within your organization, you can pull all of those documents into a case. Just like in Approval Central, you looked at a check batch or a series of invoices. This particular example shows a job description because it's been posted, and there's resumes coming in against that position to see who we want to hire. Now, this can be used for vendors, contractors, legal contracts, hiring processes, all of your employees from once they're onboarded and hired, if you want to see all of their training documentation, their payment documentation, their taxes and insurance or benefits or whatever else. So think of cases as a single way to view all of the related information and documents about a particular file type. In this case, again, we're using an HR example, but it could be the same thing from an accounting standpoint. You might want to view all of your vendors. You might want to be able to, for audit purposes, see every invoice that you've received, every addendum that you've added, every purchase order, every packing slip, every additional supporting document that might be associated with any given vendor or contract or other business relationship that you manage. And you might be able to, you might need to see all of that in one simple view and single experience. So that's what you would do then in cases. As an approver, you could see that you can then look at the invoices that we just submitted. Here's the one that we just put in. And what we can do is see that we can look at the invoice here as an approver. Now, there's a lot of different ways for approvers to get that information. I don't know if you saw in the corner of my screen, I also received an email. So I received this email that said, I have to approve this invoice workflow approval required. Now, as the department manager, I got this email and maybe I'm traveling. Maybe I'm on the road and I don't have access to the system. I can simply review this email where it breaks down all of the data that we entered into the system, the GL codes, the distribution, who the vendor is, the purchase amount, and oh, by the way, I have the invoice attached, I can quickly open it and view it from my phone or tablet or mobile device or laptop or whatever while I'm traveling as well. And then there's a couple different ways to approve that. If I was traveling, I would simply reply to this and say approve, thanks, and go on with my day. I don't need to come back and look at it. It's going to disappear. I can delete the file. I can rest assured that it is not going anywhere from KwikTag because it's still going to be maintained centrally in KwikTag. Now, for purpose of this demonstration, I'm just going to go ahead and click the box here as approve. And I'm going to know that the approval was successful. So then what? Then the data is going to be sent into GP for the accounting person to be able to post to a batch. We're just going to take a quick look at our KwikTag work queue here. And we'll scroll down here and refresh just a second. As you can see, I've got some other invoices here that are just waiting to be approved, and some of these are mine, some of these might be other people's within our organization. And so I'll just show you one that you can hover over here and see all of the breakdown, just like you could before in the experience within KwikTag. You can see all of the metadata. You can see the company name. You could, if you wanted to, view the document directly from here. All of that is accessible to you from within GP through the KwikTag work queue. I just did this one earlier today. So we can scroll down to find the batch that we have that associated with. Now we could create it. We could have created that payment in its own batch. We could grab multiple ones and put them into a new batch. You can pretty much grab, do it any way that you need to based on your accounting principles and accounting rules. So you find the voucher within the GP screen, and then as you can see, all of the data populates the dollar amount, the distribution, the currency, the document date, all of that. So once you've created that batch, once you've created that approval process from KwikTag, it pushes everything in. You create the batch here in GP, and you can then continue to add documents to it. You can search. You can go back and view as a follow-up anything that you need to from within either system. Now, one other thing back in KwikTag, as you notice, I just selected the invoice routing as the way that I wanted that to be processed. There are a lot of different ways that you can handle how invoices or other documents get routed through your system for approval. And one of the ways that we have customers that frequently look for is that they want to choose who the approver is. So for example, if I'm looking at another invoice and I need to put it into the system, I can quickly select the company again. I can see here this one is International Telephone. I'll just show you a couple different options here. And because we need to identify this as the correct address, we're going to select that one. I can tell the system that I want to select the approver instead of having it automatically go to the department manager. So some reasons that you might want to do that is if it's from a new vendor, if it's from a specific partner, if it's over a certain dollar amount, if it potentially needs CFO review and approval. There are a lot of different reasons that you might want to route things a little bit differently, and just know that all of these fields on the left-hand side are completely configurable based on your business rules, and these are just some examples that we have customers frequently ask us for. And so we'll just grab this data again. We'll put this over here. And again, we've got our default GL distributions based on this particular vendor card. And then I want to select Mary Department Manager as the approver for this one. I'm not going to put in any comments, but oh, by the way, if I did put in comments, those tag into the description field in GP. Why is that helpful? Well, there's a lot of different things that you need to track as part of your business requirements, and sometimes having them in a consistent place. Maybe it's, these need to be paid by a certain date. Maybe it's because they need to be held for review. Maybe a document is missing. Anything like that that you need to track internally, know that if you put them in the comments field, that's going to translate into the description field within GP. Okay, so now I'm going to click back over to my Mary Department Manager, and as you can see, this is refreshing. So we'll quickly get to that. Now I've got that new one that we just put in for International Telephone. My options here, by the way, are to approve, reject, or delegate. So if I wanted to send this to somebody else for approval, then I have the ability to do that as well. Again, I'm going to go ahead and approve it, and it's going to get sent into GP. So as you can see from a workflow standpoint, documents can get sent into KwikTag. They're put into drawers any number of ways. We capture the document, we integrate it into GP, and then we automate it based on your business flow, your workflow requirements, your structure, and the approval that you need to have in place. Oh, one other thing on that. Speaking of approval and auditing, one of the things that a lot of our customers find really helpful is that you can simply right-click and look at the workflow history. And as you can see here, I tagged this particular document, and it's pending approval as Mary Department Manager. Once it has been approved, you would see that step here that it was approved. You've got a date and timestamp. This makes auditors' lives so easy, and all of your accounting team. When the auditors come in and they say, I've got this list of 30 checks that I need to see, and I need all the supporting documentation, and I need to know who approved them, and I need to know that that was in compliance and aligned with your business processes, you right-click and you show them all the data. It literally makes auditors be in and out in a day or two as opposed to a couple of weeks. Not to mention, it's not taking up the time of your accounting staff or your HR staff or whatever group is being audited or has to provide the documentation. It doesn't take up their time. They can continue doing their job. There's very little disruption to the workflow as it is today, and auditors can quickly see what they need to from a historical standpoint, and everything is viewable right in line. So they can search by check number, they can search by vendor, they can search by any number of criteria, not just that we edited and added to the metadata fields. They can search for any of the document content as well. So we make it super simple for people to find things. It's one thing to capture and get data into the system. It's quite another to actually be able to find it when you need to move on and move to the next stage of the business process. So I'm just going to come back over here. Give me 1 second, and we'll continue the conversation with a few more examples. Now, typically at this point in the process, we would have somebody who would say, well, what if I have vendors that want to send their emails directly in? Well, we absolutely can support that. So there's a lot of different ways we can get documents into KwikTag, as I mentioned, and about 14 to be exact. One of them is the most common way that we encourage our clients to do is share with their vendors a unique email address that's, vendora@yourcompanyname.com, and we will set that up in our implementation phase so that it goes right into KwikTag. And when it's received in KwikTag, it'll go into the work queue of the person responsible for taking the next step with that particular document. In fact, if they're documents that you're going to be using OCR for, we can have them sent straight into our OCR engine. We can extract the data, populate the fields that we just looked at with our manual data entry, and have them be automatically populated by nature of extraction once the OCR is done. So we capture the documents up to about 14 different ways. From within GP, we looked at that, from within KwikTag, and from outside the KwikTag client, and that's an example of what I mean by having them sent in directly via email. So for example, another way that you can use that is for your expense management. So we travel a lot here on the sales and marketing side at ImageTag, and we go to events and we meet up with our partners and we meet up with our customers, and as a result of that we have receipts that we need to capture and get into the system. We eat our own dog food, as it were, and we use our own system to track our expenses. So while we're on the road, we simply snap a picture of a receipt from our email, even on our phone. We send it into receipts@companyname.com and whatever your domain is for your company. And then the next time I log into KwikTag as an employee of ImageTag, those receipts are waiting for me to index. I go through very much the same process that we just looked at from the invoice standpoint, which of course took probably 4 times longer because I was describing every step to you. But once you get into the routine, you tab through and you hit enter, and it's just like entering the invoice or an expense data someplace else. Now, the value of doing it through sending a receipt in would be that you don't have to create an Excel spreadsheet. You don't have to staple the receipts. You don't have to remember to find them at the end of the month or the end of the payment period for your accounting team, and they're already waiting in the system. What I do is I go in every Friday morning, I spend about 10 minutes, I code them, and then they're on their way. At the end of the month, I just run the expense report from within KwikTag, and it creates the Excel spreadsheet for me. I give it a date range, I give it an event name, I give it some identifier that the system knows to categorize all those receipts by, produce it on an expense report, and it gets submitted automatically to my boss for approval, and then it gets submitted to accounting so that they can track and reconcile all of the expenses that have come in. So that's just another example of from outside the KwikTag client. Once you've mastered the accounts payable area, a very logical and often next step for many of our clients is to add that to their expense management process. And then we talked about HR a little bit earlier, where forms are coming in for hiring and for employee file management and those sorts of things. So the automation process happens behind the scenes all through KwikTag. We put together what we call a matrix of your organization, of here's who reports to who. It looks just like your organizational structure, unless you need it to be tweaked for certain, again, departments or vendors or dollar amounts or whatever the case may be. You organize the documents. We help you organize the documents through the implementation process. We work very closely with Endeavour in this, and we'll work with them to really assess your business process. Some of the challenges that our customers often face aren't necessarily that what they're doing is wrong. It's that the how they're doing is taking them way longer and costing them way more than it needs to. So we've taken a look then at the simple way to integrate that once you have the KwikTag platform in place. So the how and the why are often the behind the scenes. There's things that you don't have line items for. You've got line items for all of those invoices that we just looked at. What you probably don't have line items for are the time that an employee spends in looking for documents, the cost that it takes to reproduce those documents if they can't be found, and then the fact that we're printing nearly 60% of the paper that we do receive. The bottom line is that it can cost organizations 7 to 12% of their total revenue. That's according to Gartner Group. 7 to 12% of their total revenue can be often wasted on managing documents, and all of the time and energy and effort and space and real estate and frustration, and then looking for things off-site when it comes to audit time. All of those things add up, and chances are you're dealing with them on a regular basis, and you can relate to the pain of having to find things for auditors and for department managers and waiting for approvals while department managers and others in the organization are on vacation or out of the office for whatever reason. So if it's time to take a look at your overall process and see if there's efficiencies that can be gained, if there are processes that we can save some steps on, if we can capture the documents and get them electronic early in the process by creating a unique email, by having things scanned directly into the system, by not having to store things forever. In fact, many of our clients, once they scan the documents or get them emailed into or uploaded or drag and drop, lots of different ways you can get there, once they get them into KwikTag, they shred those files within a week because they don't have the space to keep managing them and storing them forever and ever. So if any of this is something that you can relate to, and you struggle with the chasing papers and not getting invoices paid and approved on time, and you need to accelerate that process and add efficiency into your organization, I would encourage you to reach out to Steve at Endeavour. We'll work very closely with them. They'll get us involved. If you need to have your process looked at, if you need to have a discussion around how you could make this more efficient, then we'd be happy to be part of that solution for you if it seems like we would be a good fit. So definitely reach out to Steve with any questions, and they'll get in touch with us. Now, if you're using another system such as CRM or some other outside system, KwikTag has an SDK that our implementation team, again, would work with Endeavour to implement for you. The example I showed you was specific to GP, but the function of KwikTag Capture, Integrate, and Automate applies to any process, any department across your entire organization. So thanks everybody for joining today, and we hope that you found this helpful and that it encourages you to take the next step in looking to automate your business with the help of KwikTag and Endeavour. Thanks so much everybody. Have a great day.
Thank you, Mary. That was fantastic.